Number 7.
The Commanders, I may have them higher. I don't like the Terry McLaurin vibe. I think you have to give young quarterbacks dependable weapons. Their offensive line is still okay. Debo will help, but I think the Giants could be a tough, mediocre team. Philadelphia's not going backwards. So I think there's some tough games on the schedule. Back-to-back playoff teams from last year to, no, that's Green Bay. I think Washington overall is going to be good. I do not think they'll end up in the NFC Championship. So they may take a step back in how they finish, but I still think they'll be a very viable, fun team to watch and a playoff team.
Yeah, I find this incredibly frustrating because I don't even think what Colin is saying is necessarily wrong at its core, but there should be no truth to it at all. And what I mean by that is, going into this season, we should have nothing but the utmost confidence in what the Washington Commanders are building. We should think there's zero chance that the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos are above. Again, we can concede teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Eagles, because those teams have consistently been great year after year after year. So it's like you're going to give those teams the benefit of the doubt, and that makes total sense. And you know, in order to surpass them, it's like we gotta see how the weeks unfold, how these teams unfold. Do the Eagles take a little bit of a step back? You know, well, are the Bills exactly who they've been, and the Ravens, are they exactly who they've been, and the Chiefs, are they exactly who they've been? Like, we have to see how this unfolds, right? You know, to have the Chiefs fix their O-line, and does it even matter? Is Rashee Rice being suspended, and does it even matter, right? Is Lamar Jackson, does he have another gear that he's now continuing to evolve? How about Josh Allen? You know, Jalen Hurts, is there another step forward for him? Like, yeah, have to just kind of wait and see. And I think that's I think that's totally fair. And so I'm not gonna be like, oh, are you kidding me? How are the Ravens ahead against the Commanders? Like, that's absurd. That would be too much. Like, you know, it just makes sense. We're talking about August. If it's week 7 and we see how these teams are unfolding and we see how they're playing, sure, totally fair game. In August, not so much. But the fact that we can even remotely make an argument that a team like the Seahawks or the Broncos are ahead of the Washington Commanders, you should be pretty frustrated and annoyed by that. And a team that Colin thinks that the Kansas City Chiefs are actually like falling, that they're nowhere near as great as they once were, and he has them struggling to even make the playoffs, which is what confuses me about them being at number 5 in the first place. But he has them as a wild card spot. And it's just like, okay, well, if that's the lens, and that's not even necessarily my lens that I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, but if that is the lens that Colin is looking at the Kansas City Chiefs through, it's like, well, then why would the Commanders be above them then? Like, why would they not be at the 4 spot then? And why are you so confident that they can't make the NFC Championship game? Because the Eagles are 1, as we can obviously see, and then it's AFC, 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 and then the Seahawks. So are you saying that the Seahawks, you know, beat the Commanders in the divisional round and now they can't, like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm just like, well, wait a second here. And if Terry McLaurin's not playing, then that's what I was trying to get at too. It's like, well, then there's a lot more validity to some of the explanations and some of the logic that Colin is using. And what I'm arguing is that it shouldn't be. And I made a Denver Broncos video for this, and I was just like, I said, okay, you know, like, this is fascinating to have the Denver Broncos at 4. And I said, let's go through the teams as to why you can make the argument that the Broncos are 4. And I went through the Lions and the, you know, I said the Lions, they have 2 new coordinators. The Packers, can Jordan Love stay healthy? The Rams, is Matthew Stafford even going to be able to play throughout the season? Who knows? And then when I got to the Commanders, I was like, what's going on with Terry McLaurin? I said, if they have Terry McLaurin, they're adding Debo and whatnot, you know, and then everything that they're building, this team should continue to be great and have a ton of success. You know, without Terry McLaurin, yeah, this team can still be really, really good, and I believe in Jaden Daniels, but like, I'm not looking at it through the lens of being like a pretty good team or Jaden Daniels having a pretty good year. I'm a firm believer that in order to like actually truly be elite and special and reach your potential, well, then you gotta build an awesome team. You gotta have something special around there. And right now, in 2025, that includes Terry McLaurin. That and Jaden Daniels is still learning and is still growing and is still evolving. And I've referenced this before, where it's like Patrick Mahomes absolutely, positively does not need Tyreek Hill, obviously. But in year 2, to just take away Tyreek Hill from him or just take away Travis Kelce from him would have been the wrong move. Would have been the wrong. You're putting too much on the plate of a young quarterback, and that's Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously had wild success. So don't do it to Jaden Daniels. Just don't do it. You do need stability. You do need that chemistry. You do need that continuity. It also helps Cliff Kingsbury tremendously. So it's just, and whether you want to blame Terry McLaurin or blame the Commanders becomes a moot point when we're trying to figure out how to evaluate a team. I don't care who's at blame, but it's just like, it's not happening. You haven't figured your way through this right now. You don't want to have Jaden Daniels in year 2 have to troubleshoot from the jump. This is not what you want from your quarterback in year 2. You're looking to take a big step forward. You're looking to develop. You're looking to grow. In the long term, does it benefit Jaden Daniels a bit? Sure. You're giving him obstacles that he needs to overcome. But, like, I don't care about that right now with Jaden Daniels. I'm not trying to figure out, like, okay, it's great. In year 5, Jaden Daniels is, like, really hardened now and has really been through it. And, there's very few things in the NFL that he hasn't dealt with yet. Like, that's great. It's a great story to say. And it's great to worry about in year 5. I'm worried about year 2. And looking at it as you're not paying Jaden Daniels right now. You built this team with a bunch of players that are aging out, Zach Ertz, Debo, so it's like, this is the time. Let's get after it. And so the fact that you can even remotely make an argument that the Commanders are going to struggle, I guess, to get to the NFC Championship game, as Colin put it, I think is a bummer, because I don't think there should be any sense of that being a reality. I think to say that they, to be clear though, what I'm not saying is that they have to reach the NFC Championship, because the football is crazy. The Baltimore Ravens were a great team and they didn't make the AFC Championship game. And I don't even think that means that they necessarily took a step back from 23 when they did make the AFC Championship game. It was just like, no, they played the Bills and they lost. That's what happens when great teams go up against other great teams, right? Did the Ravens come up short and write their own story in that moment? Absolutely. And are they apt to blame? Sure. But, like, does it mean that they were a better team in 23 than they were in 24? No. So, like, it's the outcome is not always the definitive conclusion as to whether or not a team or a quarterback is going in the right or wrong direction. Because getting to conference championship games are hard. You're not going to get there every single year. But the fact that Colin even feels empowered to be able to put a team like the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos ahead of the Washington Commanders, I find frustrating. And you have to imagine that defense will be even better. And when you give Dan Quinn the pieces, the magic that he'll be able to work. And if you give Cliff Kingsbury the weapons, flush him, keep him flushed with weapons, as well as having Jaden Daniels, like, he'll be able to do some magic as well. Like, there should just be nothing but hype and energy around this team right now. And the fact that I guess there seems to be a lack thereof, I find a little interesting. I really do. I really do. And I do think Terry McLaurin is a big link of that, because it is his wide receiver one. It was the wide receiver who I think was second in the NFL in touchdown catches. And I think if you replace Terry McLaurin with Debo, and Debo's just your number one target, I don't like that at all. In fact, I hate that. I absolutely, positively hate that. When they got Debo, I wasn't even like a massive, like, oh, this is it, they got Debo, let's go. Like, no. I'm not a huge fan of Debo, especially at this era. But I'm a fan of Debo when you have Terry McLaurin there, when you have a fortified O-line, when you have a defense that takes a step forward, when you still got Zach Ertz, like, just winding the clock back, like, I'm okay with that. But if you have a disgruntled Terry McLaurin, or Terry McLaurin who's just not even playing at all, and now your main target's going to be Debo, I don't like that at all. Like, I'll be straight up. Like, I am not going to be anywhere close to as high on the Commanders if it's just Debo at 1, and then there you go, and no Terry McLaurin. Like, that would genuinely bum me out, because then I would just be like, oh, what the heck? Like, what are we doing right now? Like, what? How are we not figuring this out? So it still is a bit of a waiting game, I suppose, but it's August, and now even if Terry McLaurin decides to play, like, even if they reach some sort of agreement, or he's just going to end up playing out as, whatever it is, he's on the field, so much time has continued to be lost. So he hasn't even really been there. I think he's technically, like, now can practice starting on today. But I don't, I'm recording this video before today, so yesterday, so Tuesday. So he hasn't actually done anything quite yet. So we're just very close to the season here, and he's not there. That matters. Like I said, even if he ends up playing, would I be shocked if he's not able to hit the ground running from the jump? I would not be shocked. I would not be surprised. There's Cliff Kingsbury and Jane Daniels are going to be looking to do a lot with this offense now, adding a very dynamic piece like Debo. And if you actually start to have confidence in this O-line, you're going to start to expand the playbook and make, you're going to want to do different and more creative stuff. So, and Terry McLaurin just has not been part of that right now. He hasn't been part of that process in the way that he normally would have been if he was there from the jump, practicing, playing, doing all the good stuff, and also motivated to maximize what's happening right now on the field, in practice, preseason, whatever it may be. So, yeah, I'm frustrated, I'll be honest. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Washington Commanders being 7th, according to Colin Cowherd, behind the Seattle Seahawks, Kansas City Chiefs, Broncos, Ravens, Bills, and Eagles? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.